friend of the show, Sarena Townsend. Sarena, welcome back to the Sal Greco Show.
Thank you so much. It's always fun being with you.
Yeah. So I figured there's a lot going on in the news. There's a lot of legal cases, actually, I wanted to bring forth. But before all of that, there's a breaking news thing here. So as you've known, if you followed this case, there's a case of former Lieutenant Quatisha Epps. She's filed a complaint against the New York City Police Department, particularly the former Chief of Department, Jeffrey Madry, and the now Chief of Department, John Schell, and Kaz Dordry. They're all involved in that whole overtime scandal, which also involves sexual harassment, assault, and all that stuff. So I guess this morning there have been some kind of images or videos floating around on a WhatsApp, which NYPD cops are notorious for using. And I used to say this was crazy. But there's a statement now that was issued by her attorney, Eric Sanders, who will be on this show this coming Thursday, discussing any and all matters about this case. So I just want to read this, and then we'll get your take on it, because it's just breaking. So this is from Eric Sanders. Good morning. Earlier today, we became aware that coerced and unauthorized nude videos and images of Ms. Epps shared with her abuser under duress are being circulated via WhatsApp and other messaging platforms used by NYPD personnel. As instructed, Ms. Epps promptly reported this matter to the IEB Command Center, IEB log number 2025-7405. So that has already been, Internal Affairs has this. Through confidential sources, we have identified an NYPD officer using a cellular number registered with an online application linked to these unauthorized disclosures. This officer's profile, phone number, and related WhatsApp posts have been submitted to IEB for confirmation. We expect IEB to verify this information in accordance with the law, and if confirmed, take immediate action to arrest this officer. Furthermore, the investigation must continue to uncover both the originator of these disclosures and all individuals involved in the distribution. Make no mistake, these violations will not deter Ms. Epps from pursuing every available legal avenue to hold her abuser and his enablers fully accountable. So that's the statement there. So Sarena, what is your take on all of that? Because it's funny, because tonight there's a 2-part series that's going to air on ABC on Eyewitness News at 11 p.m. Eastern on Channel 7 in New York, which is highly anticipated. We don't know what's going to be said there. So what is your take? You're a counselor.
I have a lot of things to say. And not only am I an attorney, but I was a former sex crimes prosecutor, and I was in charge of internal affairs on Rikers. So all of these things check every single one of my boxes. I have a ton to say. First of all, look, those videos, you cannot be sharing those videos. First of all, there's something called rape shield laws. There's something called revenge porn. Obviously, we're not going to go into detail about what the state of this woman was in those videos, but the point is, you cannot be distributing certain types of videos in any sort of way, whether it's via email or in a WhatsApp. These officers should have known better. They should have known the law. They also should know that when you circulate things like that in your little group chats on WhatsApp, someone is going to betray you. Someone is going to disclose this. And IAB is definitely going to investigate it and probably figure it out. You can just look at the metadata, and all you got to do is figure out who was in that WhatsApp little crew there, and you're going to have people you're going to have people point fingers at you. That being said, it's very unfortunate that things happen like this. The reason why rape shield laws exist is that if this woman really was sexually assaulted, you're not allowed under the law to pull other things like this against her and use it against her. There's a lot of protections for people who were put in her alleged situation, because people like her in her situation have a very hard time coming forward and outcrying when things like this happen. So we try very hard to protect survivors of sexual abuse. And of course, Chief Madry is going to try to now use this video against her to say that it was all consensual, but that does not mean that it was consensual. And I do feel very, very badly for her that now she not only has to, defend herself against Madry and all of that, but now against this, trying to taint her reputation. It's a very, very difficult position for her to be in.
Yeah, that's basically, see, even Patrick Donahue chiming in. He says, my non-law degree Spidey sense screens revenge porn. I think he's right. A lot of people in the chat are saying, why Moshi, why are you still using WhatsApp? It never gets deleted, and subpoena is easy. It's all true. And here's another one by Patrick Donahue. This bully tactic is something that anyone who has dealt with the Dream Team Gotham Brothers shouldn't be shocked at. He's 100% right. See, Sarena, the issue here is, I know a lot of people are they're homing in on this overtime thing. A lot of people are upset in the NYPD that they overtime and whatever is now cut, or they're being micromanaged. And it shouldn't be that way, because they're micromanaging and going after the small people, the working people. They're not going after the executives. Kaz Dordry, I don't even know if this guy is a civilian. He's a cop, because now he's a deputy mayor. So it's like, these guys are never held accountable. And all they try to do is hold the little guy on the totem pole accountable. That's what they've been doing under this administration for decades. It's what you always see. So when it comes to this, we need accountability regarding the upper echelon. That's what's needed here. So I don't know who's stupid enough to put this in a WhatsApp thing. Or, Sarena, when I was I was in the NYPD, there used to be there was a WhatsApp chat in the place that I was never in this thing. I wanted nothing to do with it. But in this WhatsApp chat, they had pictures. They would talk about each other, other police officers. They would put articles and things and degrade other cops. And that's exactly what you're saying. You fall in line with, there's so many people to go after. Even if you're in it and you don't want to be in it, you got to get yourself out of it. There could be 30, 40, 50 people in it. So now when this happens, Sarena, what's next? Because I think everyone can be held accountable on one stupid, low information person putting something in, thinking that he's doing something really, really astounding.
It's a really big problem, because as you and I and anybody in law enforcement knows, if you're part of a group that receives, pornography or pornographic materials or anything of that nature, you're going to potentially go down for that. So if I were anybody in that WhatsApp group, I would run, not walk, to turn myself in actually to IAB. I would be like, listen, I just happened to be on this chat. I never anticipated or expected that this would have come through. I don't want any part of it. I would not delete anything. I would not tamper with anything. I would give it over to IAB. I mean, as long as you're not part of it, you need to remove yourself from that situation immediately and cooperate. If I were still in charge of internal affairs on Rikers and this happened there, I know I would be pulling all of that data. I'd be subpoenaing everybody. I'd be bringing them in for a compelled interview. And I would get down to the bottom of it. I know that me and my team would, and it only is going to get uglier if you don't cooperate right out the gate. It's bad, but these tactics are seen all of the time. I myself was an almost victim of revenge porn at Rikers after everybody tried to gang up on me. They tried to post terrible pictures of me in the Daily News. And luckily for me, the Daily News had tact and knew the law. But it happens to women all the time. This is why I get pissed off, because it doesn't mean that, you consented to anything, or you consented to a picture taken of you surreptitiously or anything like that. And so whoever was involved should be very, very worried.
It's only a matter of time. And it's just Patrick Donahue again. He makes another good point. When entities start using WhatsApp, Signal, other encrypted communication apps, it reeks of nefarious activities. It has been rumored that the mayor utilized such apps and forgot the passcode. Isn't it? You know what? He's right. See what I'm saying? And here's the thing that people don't understand, and I want this point put across. The FBI is involved in this case. They have been for a while. In fact, in another statement that was yesterday, I'm not going to read this whole thing, but basically in sum and substance, Eric Sanders is saying he's asking for any witnesses or anyone that knows about what happened when right after this, they went inside Jeffrey Madger, chief of department's office, when he abruptly resigns and puts his papers in, and they start taking furniture out. The carpet's ripped out. The carpet and everything they spent $20,000 refurbishing and refurnishing everything in that office. And then all of a sudden, when he resigns, they go back in there and they're remodeling it again. So, and it's right after her claims. So that right there was a red flag. There was a detective that went up there, some stooge that's part of their unit that went up there. He had no access. There's no access for just anyone to go to the 14th floor. So that in itself is a question mark. So now all of these things are starting to be, people are starting to ask questions. But I think people, a lot of people, especially NYPD or retired, are homing in on the overtime thing. You're looking at a smaller issue that's a much bigger problem. So, and if I'd say this, if you look at Quatisha Epps, whether you say she is a victim or whether you're saying she's a necessary evil, okay, you need her in whatever she knows and what has happened and transpired here to take down this corrupt administration. Because I know the FBI is involved. In a letter that was referenced in my own case, and Eric Sanders, again, he's representing me in a different case, but in my case, he had referenced that there was this going on with Epps, that the FBI was involved, and then he mentioned the entities, upper echelon, the NYPD, and the mayor's office. So remember who could be involved in this. I'm pretty sure we know who that mayor's office, what's going on there. I think we have a good idea. So that's what's at stake here. And for anyone who wants to know, and you'll know more on Thursday when I have him on, and we'll reference her later on in the show. She did complain about all of this long before it really started getting into what you think or what people are starting to summarize or surmise in their own mind. She made a complaint to EEO, to Wendy Garcia. Remember her? She was the deputy commissioner of EEO in the NYPD. Where is she now, Sarena?
Well, she's where she probably needs to be, not in the NYPD and at DOC, because who else is going to take this person but our very, very accommodating New York City Department of Correction. It's actually shocking to me the way that people could just fail up in this administration. Especially on situations like this, EEOC, look, we all know that EEOC sometimes is used as just a venting place, right? People don't get their way. Sometimes they make complaints. They don't want to follow the direction of their supervisors, so they do that. But here you have legitimate complaints, specifically of a sexual nature. How do you not take it seriously, especially knowing the pervasiveness of this attitude throughout NYPD, throughout DOC, throughout a lot of law enforcement agencies who are unfortunately being run in this administration by the people that we are seeing running here. So she's just doing her thing. She's jumping from agency to agency, which we do see in this administration happening. We saw it with Commissioner Molina, who's now, kicked out of law enforcement, but is in charge of DCAS. This is just what happens. Reuse, recycle, like sanitation to PC of NYPD. It's just, everybody just hops back and forth to different agencies. And, it's so crazy to me because as a former sex crimes prosecutor, it sounds so similar to me as what they used to do to the priests and rabbis, right? They would be found out in one doing terrible things in a school or a church or doctors in a hospital. And now all of a sudden they're just at a different hospital or a different church or a different school. And this is what we do with these people who are just total failures. And it's really terrible. They learn from the top, though. You have Mayor Adams deleting his Signal. Why not, delete all your stuff on WhatsApp? I mean, this is the rule of law.
It's a criminal enterprise is what we have. It's clearly a criminal syndicate and a criminal enterprise. And yet we have all this other mishigas going on. And that's what segues into the thing I wanted to discuss with you, which was what you were going to discuss, because it leads into this. And this was one of the headlines. There's two I'm going to put up on the screen. But the first one was from the New York Times. So on Friday, there was this whole thing. about Eric Adams' criminal case. And right here it says the Justice Department accuses Adams prosecutors of politicking and hypocrisy. In a court filing, 2 top officials released prosecutors' internal messages in a further attempt to discredit the case against the mayor of New York. So, Sarena, you saw that there's 2 parts to this, actually. So this is the first part. You saw some of these text messages that they're trying to now the Justice Department saying, oh, well, the attorney on the case, which was Scotton, the Iraq veteran, the Republican, was, I guess, texting maybe Sassone, who was the head of the U.S. Attorney's office there. I don't know what really is negative or bad about them texting each other. They're not revealing anything that's like, gotcha. So I don't know. Give me your take on that first part.
So first of all, it's a great segue because it just goes to show you that just like cops are using WhatsApp and they're texting and they're thinking it's not going to get discovered, even federal prosecutors are doing the same thing. So maybe don't feel so bad about it. But people, like, put the cell phone down, please, for the love of God. We're all guilty of it, I guess. But like, so to be honest with you, I saw some of the messages. It wasn't so bad. The problem is that Alex Spiro has been harping over and over and over, that's Mayor Adams' attorney, over and over about how this is a political prosecution. And everybody at SDNY is saying it is not a political prosecution. The evidence is there, which it is. The evidence is there. And so that's what the whole, theory was with Alex Spiro. And now you have messages going from that prosecutor saying basically, like, I guess the person who was texting him was saying, oh, are you ready to become a judge? Are you ready to take the bench? And he responded something back like, oh, first I have to convict Eric Adams. And so again, it's like, it's typical banter. I personally, if you look at it objectively, I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with what he wrote. And people are very casual in their messages to each other, and they think it's safe, and it is what it is. And I don't think on its face, objectively, there was anything necessarily wrong with it or political about it. There was a message about like how they wanted Damian Williams to kind of distance himself from the politics of it all. And so basically what Alex Spiro is doing is taking those messages and saying, look how obviously politicized this is. You have him admitting that Damian Williams, was seeking this out because of politics. And you have the prosecutor himself who was on the case, who wanted to seek higher service as a judge. And it's like, yeah, you could maybe make that argument. I personally am giving them the benefit of the doubt. I don't think that's what happened here, but it just sucks because now they have their hands on these text messages and they're going to try to warp it and make it seem like more than what it was.
That's what I was thinking. Because, unless you're directly referencing one attorney to the other, I'm going to screw Eric Adams, or I'm not going to put this guy on the stand or this witness. There's none of that. It's just banter between 2 people, which I don't know why. Don't text each other. If you're in these jobs, don't use the phone. Go back to the way things were in the 30s. Don't talk. It's face-to-face and go away. That's what I would do if I was in that office, because anything and everything can be used even against you. But again, I want to remind the public, again, this Eric Adams case started in 2017 under the original Trump Justice Department. It has changed hands as far as the head of the SDNY over and over and over again. But the actual prosecutors that were working on it, which was the Public Corruption Office, they always had the case. So all of this, none of what they're saying, it makes sense because it's all political theater, I like to say. So, the case, it is what it is, and it started in 2017. And the reason I didn't think it should be dismissed is now kind of the cat's out of the bag with the Epstein, right, where Eric Adams is clearly like the puppet master or something in the background in the shadows because all these clowns. Look, he was in and around these guys himself. Jeffrey Maddrey, he can't even distance himself from this. No. You have Jeffrey Maddrey everywhere he goes. They're hanging out together. Whether it's Zona de Cuba, Con Frito, these guys were hanging out together and pictured together everywhere. So the plausible deniability starts to waver when you're sitting there next to your pal all the time. Plus, Eric was known to go to One Police Plaza. I mean, a mayor that does this kind of stuff all the time, it's unheard of. So that little window of him trying to distance himself, it doesn't exist. So when you start, what they were going to do, what I think is happening is that the prosecutors were saying, we're going to start in 2017 with what they were having as Brooklyn Borough president. And this criminal behavior has never stopped. All the way till the other day when he hired 4 really seedy people to be deputy mayors. One was already in a corruption case with Andrew Cuomo, of all people, prosecuting him or looking at him. Then we have Kaz Dardry, who's by far the worst human being in the administration by a long, like now he is, because it was Tim Pearson, but now he took that mantle. He's the worst human being in the police department. Now he's the worst deputy mayor. The guy is completely not cut out for that job. So with all of this going on, all the cases we're doing is a buildup to the grand finale, which is whatever he did yesterday. So by doing this, my entire point was, you're going to try to dismiss a case that now it goes, all right, we have all this work, and then there's 20,000 other things, and it's just one big lead-in because it never stopped. The behavior is continuous.
It never stopped.
What a prosecutor does, Sarena? It never stopped.
Absolutely.
It never stopped.
It never stopped. And to me, what it looked like was the prosecutors knew that things were going on 5-6 years ago, but they wanted to build a case. And it's very interesting because you think about that strategy. Sometimes prosecutors want to go in, and you know, Sal, as a NYPD cop and as a DA in Brooklyn, we typically, see it and go for it right away. Not so with the feds. As you know, the feds like to build their case. They go slow. They like to do this and that, and they want it perfect. They don't want to lose. And here, I think it kicked them in their ass for not moving faster, because if they had moved faster, they had enough evidence. They just wanted more and more and more. I think they got greedy and they waited too long. In fact, even after Emil Bove, who's Trump's guy, sent that letter to Danielle Sassoon to dismiss the case, Danielle Sassoon, who's the acting U.S. attorney, or was until she quit, she said, whoa, hold up. We actually have more that we plan to bring. We have a superseding indictment that we were planning to file. It had to do with, tampering with the evidence, like I referenced earlier, deleting the Signal app and all that stuff. So they had it. They're just building it slowly. I understand you want proof beyond a reasonable doubt. You need to build your case. The feds do not like to lose. They like to say, once the feds got their claws in you, you're done for. But unfortunately here, it was a situation where they did not grab fast enough. And now with the changeover and everything, and Adams being able to kind of manipulate the situation, they've lost. Because now it looks like, and I'm sure we're going to get to this, they're dismissing the case, right? And if they're dismissing the case, forget that superseding indictment, which sucks, right? Like any of us would have been brought up on tampering charges in a second. How is that not politicized? How is that not a decision made by politics to not, he deleted evidence from his phone. He instructed other people to delete evidence from their phones. All of these things happen, right? But you're like, oh, because we're dismissing the other case because it was politicized. Even if you believe that, okay, what about the tampering case then? That's not politicized, is it? I think any one of us would have been charged if we had done that. So to me, it just reeks of, like you say, political clown theater, and it's bothersome.
Listen, I not only agree with you, I see a lot of corruption. I mean, right here's Patrick Donahue once again. He's on fire today. He said, Sal, don't forget about the off-the-record meetings involving PB3, and he means PB. By the way, he's talking about Banks, Philip Banks, the deputy mayor. That is one of the most shadiest people you're going to meet in your life. And Timothy Pearson at 315 Pearl Street, which was so there's a shadow One Police Plaza that was being, as we know about all these other lawsuits with Tim Pearson, there was a second office somewhere on Pearl Street there, 315 Pearl Street. And they operated like a shadowy group that falls under the NYPD, but it doesn't. And there's, again, Eric Adams was known to go there. So it's like everywhere you go, it really looks like a crime boss operating with a crime family. And this case reeks of this from the fire. I mean, I'm going to reiterate, There are people that pled guilty. There are people that were cooperating, pleading guilty. What happens to them now? Because you want to make this politicized. And we're going to get to another politicized case shortly. But if that's the case, then I'm already seeing that they're going to try to say that Sam Bankman-Fried was politically persecuted. I could see it already. I guess now the game plan is go on Tucker Carlson because Trump only watches like 2 or 3 people. He's one of them. And then, he'll get pardoned next. Or we'll dismiss his case. Or we'll commute his sentence, whatever it is. I started to see a pattern. And I thought, and if this is the biggest drag on Trump right now, he's got 2 big mistakes on him. It's 2 black eyes. This whole Epstein file fiasco, which is a whole nother story, whatever's going on with that, and Eric Adams. But they kind of coincide because it involves all the same people that are in the same circle. Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein, Boris Epstein, Bove, who worked in the SDNY, Comey, his daughter, Steve Bannon, Artie Idala, who's the lawyer for Bannon, and Ghislaine Maxwell, Eric Adams, who knows all these people. It's like one big circle. And you know how we look at Diddy, Pete Diddy's case. This whole thing, if you keep looking at it, it goes in the same circle. And what do they teach us in the New York City Police Department, especially detectives? Pat could tell you this. Patterns. It's the same people always involved in a circle. So it reeks, and it's like the one thing dragging President Trump down, and possibly in the midterms, as you saw at the hearings the other day that I played on the show, this could play out in midterms. And if you lose the House and you lose the Senate, you got a problem because you'll be impeached and thrown in jail probably, because that's how quick things could change for you. All over all this stuff, which is all corruption related. I don't get it. I really don't. And you were right.
Agree.
I want to show you the next headline. And the next headline, again from the Times, the same day, lawyer appointed in Adams' case says charges should be dropped. Paul D. Clement also said a judge should not allow the Trump administration to use the court's authority to compel Mr. Adams' support in the White House's mass deportation effort. So what do you have to say about that? Because that's a whole nother case here in itself.
It is. I want to make it super, super clear because I think it's really, really important for everybody to understand. This lawyer was appointed so that the judge in the case, Judge Ho, would be able to make an intelligent decision, a decision that wouldn't violate the law, and so that he could rely on somebody totally impartial in this scenario. So this lawyer, Paul Clement, is impartial, unbiased. The problem is that the question before Paul Clement had nothing to do with whether the evidence against Adams was or is not legit. Remember, the question was SDNY wants to drop the case, and they want to drop it having nothing to do with the evidence. They want to drop it because of the political reasons they claim it existed in the first place. It's distracting Eric Adams from doing his job, and because there were statements made by Damian Williams pre-trial that were prejudicial. So Paul Clement is not here opining on the veracity of the claims, the veracity of the evidence, whether the evidence was or was not good, whether Adams is or is not guilty. None of that matters. What Paul Clement was assigned to do was to take a look at whether Ho should dismiss this case with prejudice or without prejudice, or if he should not allow the SCNY to dismiss the case at all. It was a very tailored kind of analysis. And so what Paul Clement decided to suggest is it's kind of an affront and anti-democratic and just in bad form to dismiss it without prejudice, because that allows for additional quid pro quos. That allows for Trump or really anybody else who's in that camp to dangle the carrot over Eric Adams with anything and say, look, if you don't do this, that case was dismissed without prejudice. We could bring those charges against you again. We could resuscitate it. We could bring it back at you. And it basically gives them the ability to blackmail him and use that against him. Everybody knows that Eric Adams is blackmailable. They know he's weak. They know if somebody says to him, do this for me and I'll do that for you, he's going to do it. He's spineless. He has no morals. So Eric Adams is the worst person in the world that you could allow a case to be dismissed against without prejudice, because he'll do anything to make that go away. So this guy, this lawyer is looking at it and he's like, you know what? It's too risky. Eric Adams is too risky a person. Just if you're going to dismiss it, I'm not going to step into your shoes. You guys, analyze the case or whatever it is, dismiss it, but you got to do it with prejudice because otherwise it's too risky. And that's where we're at.
Yeah. And I have a comment here from Dean Burney. He said, no, Trump controlling Eric Adams will help the city. It's helping right now in immigration. Actually, Dean, there is nothing Eric Adams can do to help Trump on any immigration matter. The city laws that are in place, that have been in place for decades, and predominantly in 2014, when it's specifically by city council stated, the New York City Police Department cannot cooperate with ICE. You can't just fork people over on ICE detainer warrants. You can't subvert these laws. I will give you an example. If I was a police officer in the street and I just witnessed somebody robbing an old granny with a gun pointed at her, and then as he turns around, he starts to just turn and run, but he puts his gun in his holster and he runs, and I shoot him in the back as a police officer. The FBI, the feds, great job. The city goes, where'd you train? Where were you trained like that? You're going to not only lose your job, you'll be up for that internal investigation, NYPD. You'll be in the trial room. You'll be terminated, and you'll be charged from the city. So you have to understand that there's separation of powers. There's sovereignty, the city, the state, and the federal government. I thought conservatives were all for that. Apparently, that's arbitrary too now. So he can't order the police department to aid in civil or criminal cases, yes. But those are very limited because you can't go around with ICE. You are not a member of ICE. They don't deputize you. None of that will ever happen in New York City. Realize what you're facing. The only thing Eric Adams can do is essentially say, can you call them on an ICE detainer warrant? Can you have them in Rikers Island? He's kind of subverting the law, though, that says you can't. So the ICE and the feds can show up wherever they want. They don't really need help from anyone. They could just take action, especially when it comes to this. They want to have somebody planted outside of J Street or somebody planted outside on outside of MCC in Manhattan. It's fine. You understand? They could do what they want, but you can't cooperate with them. That is a city law that you need to vote and have the people you vote for put forth legislation changing that. So he is not helping President Trump. He is making a fool out of himself. Now he looks like Pinocchio and Tom Homan's Geppetto. That's all you're getting. And that's what they kind of referenced when they went to Congress the other day at Capitol Hill. And it was just, Eric Adams got dunked on from all the Democrats. And of course, at the end, we see Anna Paulina Luna handing out 3 criminal referrals, but it's supposed to be 4. So why are you letting off Eric Adams, who $6.9 billion was spent for illegal immigrants running around in migrant shelters, which he used to say what? Him and his buddies talk like this. Tim Pearson. Tim Pearson said, where's my crumbs when it comes to the migrant shelters? Okay. And then Eric Adams on his press conference refers to people as Negroes. We're in the 1970s, apparently, in Harlem, because that's what he's trying to reference at. I don't know. He's talking to he's trying to be low information, Eric Adams. So that's the problem. They don't need him to get these people. You need cooperation, but unfortunately, there's 46 Democrats on city council, 46 or 45. So you need to vote differently in New York City. And how are you going to do that? Tons of low information voters love those people in city council. A lot of them being socialists, a lot of them being far left, some of them not so moderate, but leaning a little bit one way. So I just wanted to address that because that is a fact. And I don't know why they keep referencing this low information talking point. He cannot help you with immigration. He can't. You noticed you were on Rikers. You cannot cooperate with ICE.
No, we used to have to discipline people who cooperated with ICE, like officers who cooperated with ICE. We had to discipline. So yeah, no, you can't. And Mayor Eric Adams is not somebody who's going to help us do anything, whether he's under Trump's thumb or anybody else's thumb. He's a failure. The last thing we need is our mayor of New York City to owe people anything because he'll give it to them at any price.
Yeah, and so just trying to wrap this part of this the show up here with this part. What is your whole take on this Eric Adams case? Obviously, the Solicitor General, said what he said. I don't know if they're going to dismiss this case with prejudice or without, because we don't know what the judge's next move is. But I mean, this has turned into a fiasco, and now there's other things behind this. I don't know. I don't know what to say. I really think this is going to hurt Trump in about 18 months. That's what I think. The Democrats know what they got with this, and although there's pieces of this that are missing, because the migrant shelters thing, the Capitol Hill thing, all these things, if you add it up, it's a bad association to be associated with Eric Adams in the long run. That's what I think. And it's too far gone. I think it's too far gone to say, oh, no, let's prosecute him on this case.
I think it's just setting terrible, as a lawyer, setting terrible precedent. Absolutely terrible precedent. You have proof beyond a reasonable doubt that he did certain things. Look, Alex Spiro, as much as I say things about him, it is actually his job to defend Eric Adams. It's okay, technically, for him to make, brazen statements, whether, totally not true or somewhat not true. I mean, he's going to advocate for his client. It's justice's job to take that and say, okay, but we have proof beyond a reasonable doubt. We're still moving forward. This is setting terrible precedent to drop a case like this, where there is evidence simply because of political pressure and, so-called messages between prosecutors that really didn't amount to any sort of admission to anything bad. It's just very bad, because people can and should use this against, the feds in the future if they're being prosecuted. Why did Eric Adams get special treatment? It doesn't make sense. I do think at this point, with that clement response, that the judge is probably going to dismiss the case with prejudice, and Eric Adams is going to win on that front and lose on the mayoral front. So we got to take the silver lining.
It's really sad, because that's what people are upset, that there's never any accountability. Because God forbid you spit on the sidewalk, you're going to be charged. It's only the rules apply to those who are not either politically connected or part of the power establishment and the power in charge. If you're a regular person, the full weight of the law gets used against you, but if you're a part of that other power structure, or you are the power structure, you get basically what? You could almost shoot someone and get away with it. That's what it seems. I mean, even under Trump's Justice Department, that's scary to me. I did not vote for that. That's as much as I could say. I think a lot of people might have thought differently in November had they known this was what was coming, because I already hear a lot of bad feedback off of this. But now you reference another case, and again, it's a political thing. So I'm going to let you take the mantle with this. The Luigi Mangione case, which already was politicized. Eric Adams walking out with 30 cops to do a job of 2 cops. Then he goes on HBO or whatever. He's there with the chief of detectives, this guy Kenny, and they're bragging about facts that have not been disclosed through discovery, which already taints this case. And you have even more info. So you take it with the Luigi Mangione thing, because this is another case that's it's just terrible. I think it should be dropped already. It's terrible. It's terrible.
So, first of all, let's talk about this bad precedent that Eric Adams just set, and basically Emil Bove and the Trump administration just set. They're dropping the case against Eric Adams because of 2 reasons. 1, Eric Adams can't concentrate on his job. And 2, there was political, right? There were statements made publicly about the case before it went to trial. Okay. Let's see if Luigi Mangione is going to be treated the same way. Luigi Mangione, can he do his job while he's incarcerated? I don't think he can. And then number 2, were things said about Luigi Mangione before his trial, incriminating things? Not only were they said by Eric Adams. Are we listening to ourselves? We're in the twilight zone. Eric Adams has a problem with Eric Adams's own actions. He's the one who went on the perp walk. He's the one going on Netflix or whatever channel it is to have this documentary to say all these terrible things, undisclosed discovery. And let's take it a little bit farther. we now hear, we're learning that Jessica Tisch, the police commissioner of NYPD, who complimented NYPD for finding Luigi when Altoona police are the ones who found Luigi, but fine. Apparently, she made some comments herself about whether or not the person seen in the surveillance video that police were collecting was in fact Luigi Mangione. And from what I understand, some of the comments revolved around whether the person in the surveillance video was as chiseled as Luigi, as handsome as Luigi. I mean, you're going to drop the Eric Adams case because of things that the prosecutors said about the case. And here you have the police commissioner saying things about the Luigi Mangione case that cast doubt about the identity of the perp. We are having an insane situation, Sal. We are having a mirror image. What is it? It's like opposite day. I don't know. We're staring in the mirror. It's Alice in Wonderland. How many references through the looking glass can I make? Eric Adams is free. Luigi Mangione is facing the death penalty. Make it make sense. I know that the crimes that they're accused of were different. I get that. I'm not trying to say. But my point is justice being applied equally to these people? No, it is not. And it disgusts me. And I think the public's going to have a real big problem with it. And they all know about jury nullification. And I think that prosecutors should be very concerned about a jury nullifying if the Luigi case goes to trial on these, same hypocritical facts.
Yeah, it's funny. Right here, Veronica Electron says McDonald's found Luigi's. That is also a funny thing. Yeah. I can't believe that. And shout out Eric Dims in the comments. For everyone, please, if you can, take that moment to go in his GoFundMe. If you can, if you haven't, check it out, please. If you can support Eric, as you know, his son is still in hospice. Eric's been running around with his family. I did see him. He was on Newsmax and News Nation. Great job by Eric Dim on that. And please, we need as much attention, support, prayers, anything you could donate, anything you can for little Derek in his fight against brain cancer. Because trust me, this is a fight of your life. I know my father had to deal with the same thing. So please, if you can, go check that out. And shout out to you, Eric. But back to this Luigi Mangione thing. I think that there should be a jury nullification. If they don't move the venue, if you can't get the venue being moved, how is this a fair trial? This almost sets up the way they scream about Trump supporters can't get a fair trial in Washington, D.C., which is true, and they can't get a fair trial in New York City. I don't know about that one. But if you're going to run with that narrative, then how is this kid getting a fair trial? Well, how can you say that? These guys are all over. The problem I'm seeing, Serena, and it's the same thing, and we're going to talk about another case coming up, but it's all self-impressed people that cannot stay away from cameras, social media, partying all the time. They just want to be a celebrity, but in the end, you're just a mayor. You're just a cop. You're just a prosecutor. Stay out of the limelight. Just do your job and go home. How hard is that? I don't get it. I did as a cop. I don't get it.
Apparently it's very hard. And it's just, again, it's another example of rules for thee and not for me. It's just the way that these politicians are working. And yes, it's true. That McDonald's guy is the one who called it in and then apparently didn't even get the reward because
he didn't get the money.
Right. You have to call like the 9-digit, the 10-digit phone number instead of 911, poor guy. Yeah, you can't catch a break. Again, rules for thee and not for me.
I don't know what to say. It's like it's one thing after the other. In the end, what do you think? What is the next move there? Do the prosecutors? Is the defense? Can they move to dismiss this? Will that go through? Because I know I don't know if it's in the Southern District or in state court. Because I don't know if it's in both.
It's actually both. Yeah. It's in SDNY, same prosecutors as the Eric Adams case and the Manhattan DA's office. So both are prosecuting him. The feds are looking at the death penalty. They are prosecuting him in both venues. So yeah, if I were the defense and I read that, I think it came out in New York Magazine or something like that. If I read that, oh, you're damn right. I would be writing motions. I would be, asking for subpoenas. And I would probably be calling Jessica Tisch to the stand, honestly, during the suppression hearings, right? Because before trial, there's pretrial suppression hearings where the police have to prove that there was nothing illegal done when it came down to, collecting items from him, whether, incriminating pieces of property or any other contraband, and also in collecting the identification. And so if there's a question about his identification, whether his identification was legitimate or not, and the police commissioner herself of the city that's prosecuting him is questioning it, I'm calling her to the stand and I'm questioning her about those statements. So, I think this could go haywire. And if I were Karen Agnifilo, I would take every opportunity to poke holes in this. And they're just giving her the opportunities at this point.
I think this ends up kind of like the O.J. Simpson case. Dead to rights. He was clearly the guy that did everything, but you had all the discovery and how they handled the evidence, and that ended up in an acquittal, even though he was found guilty at the civil trial. So, because it's two different things. But I think that's the route you headed with this, because I don't know how all of this is tainted, and I don't know why the feds would let Eric Adams and his police department take the lead in any of this, because clearly they are using this as a political tool for what I don't know. Because it's not going to save Eric Adams on anything. He's not tough on crime. That was the only perp walk the guy's ever done in his life, because he didn't do any as a cop. And it was ridiculous to have 30 cops try to transport this guy to an arraignment where he wasn't even shackled, by the way. No leg shackles on a guy who's clearly a flight risk. So, everything that this man does, he's involved in, is either corrupt or criminal. That's all I've ever noticed with him. And I think that this case 100% is going to end up like the O.J. Simpson case if it goes to trial. Because now he has no due process. It's completely tainted. He had no shot. He has no shot right now.
Yeah. Sal, what do we say when we prosecute people, let's say in Manhattan, right? It's the people of the state of New York who are prosecuting this. It is the people's interest in whether this person is found guilty or not guilty. And I got to tell you, the people are speaking loud and clear. They do not want this man convicted. And you know what? If it had been done straightforwardly and non-politically and done with the right due process, and he was the actual perpetrator and everything was done A to Z, soup to nuts, the right way, convict him. But people have a problem when it's not done judiciously, when people's rights are trampled on, and people start to think, you know what? I simply don't even care if he did the thing anyway, because he didn't get a fair shake. And that is what our justice system is based on. You could like it or not, but this is what the people are saying. And this is something that the prosecutors should be very wary of going forward.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel sorry for the victim's family in this. Unfortunately, you may not see any justice because the New York City mayor is an incompetent buffoon who has no business being the mayor, because he has no access to security clearance, by the way. This has been going on for a while. He still doesn't, okay? Him and his buffoons have dirtied up this case in such a way that there is no path forward. Really, it's completely tainted. And there'll be appeals. This will be going on for years, if not decades, if they go through with this. In the end, I still see this ending in an O.J. Simpson kind of style way where it's an acquittal, a hung jury. It'll be something, because they tainted this. And you have one person and his cronies to blame, Eric Adams and his bunch. That's how I see it. So there's another case I wanted to reference here because it happened over the weekend, and it's in the New York Post. It says NYPD Internal Affairs boss repeatedly hit on Sergeant, told her she had a nice rack, and demanded a lap dance. This is a lawsuit. An NYPD lieutenant with the Internal Affairs Bureau repeatedly hit on female sergeant who works under him, telling her she has a nice rack and demanding a lap dance, according to a new lawsuit. Sergeant Fitzgerald Sanchez joined the department in 07, went to work for IEB Lieutenant Ronald Reynolds in November 2024 at a unit in the Bronx. He immediately began asking Sanchez out to breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and quizzing her on relationship status, according to the suit. I mean, before I even go forward, Sarena, haven't we been through this before? How many other times have we heard this about someone in the Eric Adams New York City Police Department where this is, I'm sure this has happened many a time in the past, but it's so prominent under this guy from his own chief of department. I mean, it's just prominent.
First of all, I couldn't get past how many meals they were going to get together. The breakfast, lunch, and dinner thing was like, I was like, that's a lot of dates in one day. I don't know, man. When are you doing your work? But for me, the thing obviously that stands out is internal affairs. Really? Really? I mean, you don't know any better. This is the stuff that you guys are supposed to be investigating and prosecuting and, substantiating. I was a head of internal affairs in my own past life. And unfortunately, we have seen that happen in every department. But at the same time, for God's sake, you have to know better. What are you doing? Of course, this is all alleged. We don't know if it's true yet. But if true, what on earth are you doing? Also, like, can you get the hint? She obviously was not interested. And it's bad enough as a supervisor to do that to a supervisee. There's, certain restrictions there. But now you're in internal affairs. You're using lewd language, like nice rack. Really? First of all, what are we in, like 1987? Like, at least, update the line. But no, it's totally inappropriate. It's totally inappropriate. It happens a lot. This harkens all the way back to the first thing we talked about the culture of the NYPD under Eric Adams. Other agencies too, DOC, I could attest to also, it's just this pervasive thing, and kudos to the women, especially the day after International Women's Day. Kudos to the women coming out there and being brave and making those accusations, because Lord knows it's not easy. It's not easy to come out against a chief of department. It's not easy to come out against a head of internal affairs. It's not easy to come out against powerful people. And so if true, I support this woman fully, and I hope that, he gets his.
Yeah, it's crazy what was said here. I see right here, Nighthawk says, any man who deals with women on the job, you're opening yourself up to a lot of problems when the love affair is over. Shaking my head. He's right. I mean, look at this. This was also on this article. The alleged behavior continued, escalating at the unit's Christmas party at Russo's on the Bay in Queens, December 12th. This is another problem I'm having, Sarena. All these stupid parties and venues they go to. I only went to two parties. I was forced to go to one, and I went to another one where they told me they pressure you into going to these stupid parties.
That's true. They do.
I stopped going at all. I didn't go for, the rest of my career. But these parties are where this kind of behavior occurs. And we've seen it in the past. We had a cop crash a car drunk when he came back from this, and he was working. He was on duty. It was a big thing in the paper, I remember. So again, and look at what happens here. He told her she was good looking, hot, and beautiful. This was at this party. At the table, this is what he said to her. This is alleged, but you look so beautiful. You look so hot. Hey, do you want to go to a strip club with me? And she was, so Sanchez alleged, she said, I was like, absolutely not. He came back a couple minutes later, and he's like, come to the strip club and you can give me a lap dance. Look, what's wrong with this guy?
I don't know. Can I just put a PSA out there for the men and women on the job who are planning on doing this? Like, please don't, because first of all, even if you don't want to just be moral about it, even if you just don't want to not do it because it's the right thing, okay? Even if you want to put that aside, why are you trusting people? Why are you trusting coworkers to not rat you out? Why are you so comfortable acting this way around people? You should not be. It's going to come back to haunt you. And you're absolutely right, Sal. The parties are where it's at. It begins and it happens and it ends at all of these parties, whether it happens there or later. These things, the parties do not help you. Mixing alcohol with just bad ideas.
This gets worse as you listen to this. It gets more disturbing. So she's so like, now she knows there's something like wrong, and in the office she's coming in wearing long sweaters, and then he asks her to come to the office, and he's got like a sex tape or something going on television. So kind of like what Jeffrey Madry's doing.
Oh my God.
And she ran out of the office. I mean, it's clear what he's insinuating. I just don't understand this behavior. This is internal affairs. These are the people. These are the people that are involved in going after police officers and supervise. Allegedly.
So
She has
they
18 years on it. This is terrible. 18 years on the job. Of course, she complained to EEO, which means Wendy Garcia would have had this. And that's why you're not seeing anything.
I'm sure it was handled properly and swiftly under Wendy Garcia. Listen, this guy, first of all, while the allegations are pending, he's going to have to be, in my opinion, modified. He's going to have to be taken out of internal affairs. And by the way, I do defend officers now routinely who are facing charges by internal affairs in NYPD and in DOC. If I have any clients who were investigated by this guy, or if this guy oversaw any of those investigations, I'm petitioning to reopen those cases because he now has no credibility and is, his investigations are tainted. So you have to understand. And by the way, as you know, if he wasn't in internal affairs and he was a beat cop, for example, right? The DAs are putting that all over, the Brady disclosures and the Giglio disclosures, and all of the defense attorneys who have defendants who have been arrested by that person are going to say that person, those cases need to be reopened and reinvestigated because that person lacks credibility. Look, if you take a job as a police officer and certainly in internal affairs, you just need to act differently than if you had a job in McDonald's, although apparently McDonald's is fighting crime by turning in Luigi. You know what I mean? Like you just have to be different. And if you can't, then just don't apply for that job because it's not for you. That's it.
Now I
preach
see
preach. Yeah.
I just see a disturbing pattern in this administration.
Yeah.
There's so many sexual harassment or sexual assault lawsuits, and involves everyone all the way to the top. They get right to Eric Adams. It's really disturbing, and the trend just continues. But again, before I get to the next thing, which kind of is like side by side with something like this, but again, she complained to EEO, which would have been Wendy Garcia. Again, and we mentioned her in the beginning, where somebody else complained there. What happens to your complaints? Unless she's going to, well, we all know she was frequenting our favorite nightclub in the Bronx, the Shuttered nightclub, Consa Frito. Were they going there and just shredding the papers? Because nobody has been ever held accountable in this goddamn police department for anything. And I'm talking about white shirts and above. Has anyone been held accountable? Short of you being arrested for DWI, which I saw that one a couple of days ago, and that's egregious. And that, of course, you have to do what you have to do. That's criminal behavior. But with all this little stuff, because remember, these are the people that are passing judgments on Officer Joe or Officer Jane for what? Like not having white socks or being off post five like half a block away because they were checking something out and they get a CD, get a command discipline. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like discipline is not fair. And it's not even fair. It's like completely biased. And this proves it. I don't know. What's your take on all this? I see this. This is more of the same. It's disgusting. It needs to they need an inspector general in that place.
I totally agree. It's very, very disturbing because you're right. And I'm glad you made that distinction. The white shirts and above, it's very hard to come down on them. And you see just your regular beat cop getting disciplined all the time. But meanwhile, this is the culture that's being trickled down from the top. And you cannot expect people to behave when their bosses don't behave. So it's a big problem. And Eric Dim makes a good point. Those cases are very difficult to prove. He's absolutely right. He's so right. And you do need somebody to come forward with credibility to make those claims. And then you need to really process them appropriately.
And that's one thing. There's one thing me and Eric actually, we discussed this offline. And he actually, there's more to this because he didn't write this. Like, I don't think he's enough space, but he's saying, what are the protocols for this? Because they have some, but they don't have some. Because you always see that, and nobody ever nips this in the butt. So Eric is saying, whether you can prove it, disprove it, what are the guidelines? Is there penalties? Why does it never no one's ever held accountable? That's the bottom line with this. He said to me, there's like no guidelines that they follow. It's like, I'm a captain, so I don't have to follow the guidelines what you little people do. Like, that's the feeling you get. So then what's the point? Yeah, that's how we see it. He's saying, what are the guidelines and why aren't they following it?
Yeah, it's a microcosm of what's happening to Eric Adams, right? It's like you have this mini situation in NYPD where the top people don't get punished, but the bottom people do. Just like when you open it up to the larger, picture, you have the top people like Eric Adams not being prosecuted for his crimes, but you have the little people like Luigi Mangione, or really way littler people who have fewer resources and no money to defend themselves, get prosecuted every day for things. So it's just everything is a microcosm of the bigger picture, and that is what this is what the administration is running.
Well, this is going to segue to the final topic here. Another thing that happened that we found out in the last few days, and that's the pole dancing NYPD detective pulled from active cases in sex crimes unit police sources. This is in the New York Post by Tina Moore. So I'm going to further this. I don't know what your take on this is. we found this out, and nobody even discussed this. Number one, she was on that Brady list. If you look it up, It says 50 precinct. It doesn't disclose reason, it just says CPI. CPI is your folder. I don't know what's going on with that, but she's clearly on the list. And usually if you're not on that list for like CCRB, which could be, it's a determining factor. Your CCRBs, which some of them could be slanted. Look at Eric Dim. He was victimized by that system. In other instances, they're correct. So you have to really look at a deeper dive in that. But normally you're on there for not giving testimony or lying or something, perjury, something. So you're not deemed credible. That's the bottom line with the Brady list. So Detective Machado, which I posted on X, and unfortunately we can't pull this up right now, but so she left the job, I believe, in October of 2021. She leaves for 8 months. I don't understand exactly the reason why. She comes back to the job. Now, Sarena, the process in the NYPD when you do that is you need to reapply, and you have to be approved by a candidate assessment division, and the most important person is the police commissioner. So she applied 8 months later, and this is now under Eric Adams, under Keyshawn Sewell as police commissioner, and Eddie Caban as a first deputy commissioner. So she gets back on the job. So you are already going to be under probation for a full year. Now, 5 months after she was approved to come back on the job, she suddenly is transferred into Manhattan Special Victims, I believe, or one of the Special Victims unit, which then a year and a half later, she gets detective. Now, the probationary thing could be, they're saying from the candidate assessment division that that's just a tag and that you technically, because you already went through everything, you're not on probation. But legally, that's not true. And I'll tell you why. When they interview you again, when they interview you for this job again, you have to disclose everything. So what they're saying is since it's 8 months later, someone or people, sources, more than one person, is saying that she did this video that she was twerking in January of 2022. If that is the case, you must disclose this. Now, you could say modeling, but then candidate assessment division has to ask, okay, modeling what? Modeling where? Modeling for who? You have to. So if you're going to say twerking on a video, because this could boomerang back, just like when you come back on the job after you're 8 months away and they say, do you have any tattoos? Yes. What does that mean? Oh, so you got a tattoo and you just go, next question. No, they're going to say, tattoo where? What does this say? Because what if you just say, what if that person says, you have a tattoo, and they say yes, and you don't say anything else, and then you come to find out it's a swastika on his arm. You understand? And then you get decertified anyway, and you're gone. So there's going to be a lot of questions with that. But she got transferred 5 months after she came back to a specialized unit and then became a detective, despite being on this list and despite what I'm telling you. Because the question is, did she disclose all of this in this interview if it's true that it was in January of 2022? Or did they fail and not ask a question? They just kept going on and on and on, because the rumor here is also she knew this Eddie Caban, these Consofrito people, and that's what kind of helped her get to the squad, the special victims. But I want your whole take on it. I just figured I'd roll that out because we can't put it on the screen.
Yeah, I see it two different ways, but I generally like agree with you. First, I want to just make one comment about my feelings. I think if you are a private citizen and you do this, like, I'm all for self-expression. And if you want to do your thing, like, do your thing. You know, if that's your thing, it's not illegal. It may be a little bit like risque. Do your thing. However, it goes back to what I said before. If you want to be in law enforcement and you are going to potentially hold other people's lives in your hands, your credibility needs to be unmatched. It needs to be above question. And you need to disclose, like what you just said, Sal. You need to disclose things that are going to be problematic when it comes to assessing your credibility or your, kind of moral range. And so, look, she should have disclosed this. I think that a full investigation needs to take place because I think you're also right. Did the Candidate Assessment Bureau ask the right questions? Did they dig in where they were supposed to? Was she doing this while on the job as well? Because then she would have had to apply for secondary, for approval to have a second job and secondary income. And I have to say, I bet that she did not get approval. So all of these little things add up. And again, you don't want to necessarily say that because you do something like that, it just means that you're an immoral person. I'm not going to go ahead and say that. But again, you're representing the NYPD, and now you're also representing, it comes very close to the line, especially when you're a sex crimes detective. It's not a great look. I mean, maybe she could say that she was doing some research for her job. I don't know. But it's not a good look. You don't want this to come back to you. And yeah, I mean, look, we have to be a little bit conservative when we're in law enforcement. It just is what it is. And if you want to be a less conservative person, a more open person, again, kudos to you. I have no personal problem with that, but it is a problem to then go into law enforcement and have those kinds of activities on your record. It just is. Go and do a different job. I think that won't hold that against you. There's plenty of jobs that won't. Law enforcement is really not it.
Yeah, I like Eric Dim's comment right there. I have no problem with strippers and entertainment, but if you want to be a cop, you can't be an entertainer. Pick one. Just like you can't be a gangster and a cop either. So you're associating with seedy people, seedy places, shady people with in the Bronx up there, whatever was going on there. Can't have a badge and act like a gangster. Pick a side. You can't have it both. And that's the problem you're seeing here. So again, there's a lot of rumors with this individual. I am seeing it as a complete failure on the NYPD's part because clearly we don't know if they knew about this, who would have approved this. Also, she's associating with people that, again, likely or reasonably believed to have engaged in criminal activity. I mean, tell me, guys, in this video, you're telling me everyone's an upstanding citizen because I'm hearing that they aren't. So that's another issue. But the real issue on hand is she got sent to a unit on this list in 5 months after coming back. I mean, what are your qualifications in 5 months? I know guys that have taken 10 years to get to where they are in a unit. 10 years with a perfect record, never sick. Like the exemplary cop can't get transferred. It takes 10 years. This person, 5 months coming back, is in a unit. Tell me how this works. And that's what people are really upset about. And again, the questions I'm bringing are the questions that the department will have to answer, whether it be in an internal investigation or in a potential lawsuit, because that's what's going to boil down to. Were there questions asked? Did they know? If she came back, did she disclose this? Why didn't you? You can't just say, oh, the department. No. In the court, you better know your answers because they're going to burn you on the stand. So, and I mean, I also find it ironic. This is now, we've heard two things about lap dances today. There was another incident in the 44th precinct. They had another Christmas party where they made this young female cop. They destroyed her reputation for doing a lap dance on this lieutenant. The lieutenant got transferred. It was in the paper. I mean, it was in the New York Post like every other day. If we're going to ostracize those people for that, then this person and this lieutenant, you have to treat them the same. Because what are you trying to say? One thing is worse than the other. That's not, and that's the problem. We don't have any. There's no parity, especially on this job, and there's no one ever held accountable. I think that's the theme of the show, right?
It is. There's a lot. There's a lot of threads that we've followed on this episode. Actually, I found it very interesting because you go from one to the next, and it all just shows. And you're right, comes down to the lack of accountability and the hypocrisy. Right? There's accountability for some, but not for everybody, and that's worse. It's better to have a blanket no accountability or a blanket total accountability rather than selective accountability. So that's where we're at.
Correct. And I mean, at some point, you also, as far as like conduct on becoming an officer, if you want to say that, would be, do you think it's okay for you to be dancing on a stripper pole and have this on a video and think you could work in a sex crimes unit where they will be, once this is public, any defense counselor, any case you work, will bring this up and say, your judgment stinks.
I would.
So how do I know you didn't do anything in my client's case? I mean, these are things that I know. I think the public doesn't, or the Joe cops don't, because they look at it one way. But I think we could all agree we have a problem. There's no accountability. The NYPD right now with Tish and all these people, their judgment, everything they do, it stinks. They lie about everything. We now have a man-child as a deputy mayor. He oversees all of it. That's Kaz Daughtry. That's a problem. So, I want to hope for better in the NYPD and for New York City and for everything in general. But it's really up to the voters and the people. So, really, the low information stuff, we're trying to keep everyone informed. That's the point of the show. And we take facts and we give fact-based analysis off of it. None of this stuff I'm making up out of a cloud of dust. And even when I say it's a rumor or it's alleged, or because there are sources that are going back and saying, no, and they have evidence of it. It just, you haven't seen it on the big screen yet, but that'll be to be continued. Sarena, this has been a great time with you on here. Again, the comments, a lot of people, they like you. They always want you on. Tell these people where they could find you and where they could see you.
Thank you so much. You can find me on my website. My Townsend law firm is www.townsendlawnyc.com. You could also find me on Instagram, Sarena T. My name is SarenaTee on Instagram. I'm on X as Sarena Townsend or Townsend Sarena. You could just Google me. And I'm on TikTok as Sarena Townsend. So you could find me basically on any social media platform that you desire. Thank you, Sal. Well, it's always a pleasure to be with you.
I know it's been great. I like when you give a legal look on everything, especially with all this mishigas going on. And I just have to say, people tune in tonight, ABC News, Channel 7, if in New York City, 11 p.m. You're going to see whatever Epps has to say or whatever's going on. She'll be on tonight and tomorrow. Tomorrow I will be on again at 12:05 live. I'm going to try to cover whatever's said there on the show and anything else that's breaking. And, I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their Monday. And, let's just hope for the best with everything. And again, prayers go out to Eric Dim and his family. If you can, please donate to the cause, because every little bit helps, because it's now we're going to need to find some groundbreaking stuff to try to get ahead of the curve here. So, thank you all. You all have a blessed rest of your day.
So this is a biblical moment. When Jesus was on the cross, he said, God, forgive them, for they know not what they do. All these Negroes who are asking me to step down, God, forgive them. Are you stupid?